that, and we kind of like started working behind the scenes at night for dinner, and we were like kind of bonding into, all right, let's get her done, kind of thing. And so that was fun. And then when that one ended, I remember that was the part where I got in a really expanded state, and everybody looked completely beautiful. Remember I told you that story, how it was like, everybody is so interesting, everybody's so beautiful. And I was like, so, obviously, I kind of think that's what you're kind of going for, is get everybody in an expanded state.
Right, yeah.
So
it was, that event was interesting.
Yeah.
It was basically going to be taking everyone to oneness.
Gateway
and
to
the
oneness,
highest, and the highest frequency available. And I wasn't very familiar with the human condition. So, yes, not everybody was safe in the environment.
Some people cry.
Welcome
to another episode
of Ask Me Anything
of Driving To The Rez.
Yeah. Driving To The Rez with your favorite host. That would be me, Larry.
Inelia. And today we have our AMA, Ask Me Anything with
Fred Guerin.
Yay!
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Fred.
Thank you.
Super exciting to be here.
It is. It looks like we're not in the same room, but we are. We're across the table from each other.
So we can see each other and talk to each other. That's
exactly.
great. All right, so you're probably familiar with these questions by now. And the first question we're going to ask you is to give us a short intro of who you are.
Who I am.
Yes.
As a
Tell us who you are.
We just want to know who you are. Who's Fred?
Who's Fred at the core?
Mm-hmm.
From
the pure of your essence.
Yes. My pure essence is a light being, actually, that has many overlays of crazy throughout a 59-year life.
That sounds about right.
Very good.
Very good.
All right then.
All right then. Nobody would guess Fred's crazy.
Nobody has guessed that you're crazy. That's amazing.
There's no. Why? Well, why would they?
You haven't told them yet.
I just told
everyone.
them. Yeah, it turns out that, yes, as you go through life, you build up crazy. I mean, my philosophy on that is that most people, especially people on a spiritual path, like, we end up some kind of a path, that you come into the world and you pretty much drill yourself into a hole till you're about 30. And then you start figuring it out, and then you spend the rest of your life digging
out of that hole.
Digging out of the hole.
That's quite funny.
Oh my gosh. All right, that's great. So our next question is about your book. What book has had the most impact in your life?
I know which book had the most impact in my life. Okay. It was when I was 14 years old. I was on a beach in Southern California with my sister, and I'm a vampire, so I was uncomfortable and hot, and I wasn't enjoying myself. But she pitched over the first book of Carlos Castaneda.
Oh,
I was right.
We won.
Into the Sand.
Yeah.
It was the one.
Do you remember the name?
It was, the first one it's like Conversations with Don Juan.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so.
Yeah. Something about Don Juan. And I started reading that book, and it was the first, not that I was a heavy reader at the time, I was reading, but it was slow going. But that book was the first time that I noticed that when you're reading a book, something feels like resonant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is truth.
Right.
This book is truth. It was, I don't know if it was coded writing or what he was doing with that, but it was something that no other book had.
Mm.
And the other thing that book did is it was all about expansion of awareness.
Mm.
And that's what he talked about. Yeah, there was things like in there about, peyote and stuff, but my sisters were potheads at the time. And every time I just heard that stuff, it was like flatline. Like, I don't even hear or see that. It just, what I was looking for in the book was between the lines, all the expansion of awareness. Sweet. And how he was doing it. And it was resonating with me. And so
how old were you again?
That's 14.
Like 14?
I'm pretty sure it was 14. Okay. Might have been 12 or 13, something.
Yeah.
I was probably junior high.
Are your sisters older than you?
Yeah, my sister who threw it over to me was 6 years older.
Wow.
That's Robin. I've actually thanked her for throwing that book to me in the sand since then, because it changed my life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, because my whole life was expansion of awareness, pursuit after that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did she feel the same way about the book? I mean,
not at all.
No?
She was a pot smoker, and she heard it had peyote in it. And,
and
when she read it, it didn't have all the things she wanted. It wasn't about how to do better with peyote. It was nothing to do with any of that. And so she just was like, this isn't interesting to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she sort of cast it away. It's like, here's some trash, have it, brother.
Yeah, here's some junk. I don't know if you want it, but yeah. And for me, it was like,
or maybe throwing it at you because you're a younger brother and, something that hit your head or something.
No, my older sister Robin was a sweet one.
Oh, she was? Okay.
Yeah, the one under her, Debbie, was the one who was a little more feisty. Yeah.
Oh, so it was nice. That's good to know.
Yeah, it was. She was just trying to help me out because she saw I was bored and uncomfortable,
that's so cool, huh?
Getting red spots in the sun. The beach sucks.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, so clarification around the vampire thing. You don't actually run around sucking people dry and
in energy and blood or anything, right?
When you say vampire, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I mean that I'm sensitive to the sun, and the planet is a little bit harsh on me.
Okay, so kind of opposite of what a vampire is.
Well, yeah, vampires are sensitive to the sun, and I mean, I hope I don't suck people's energy. I think I did before I was. I think I did before I was 30.
Oh boy!
As you were digging your hole.
As I was digging my hole. Yeah, because I was
full of other people's nasty stuff.
I was acting out my French side from my dad, French Canadian side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about these French...
So you just insulted every French Canadian on the planet. Yeah. So tell me more about that.
Well, you can say I did that, but he was a specific person that 2 generations before, they came from a little town in France called Sayac. And I have the passport and everything. The passport's from 1800s. They're so funny. There's no picture. It just says face oval, eyes frown, nose normal.
That's hilarious.
Mouth medium. It's like, okay, we're supposed to know what that means if you're European and you've only seen, So his grandfather came across in the 1800s through France and into Canada, and they were like not homesteaders but pioneers. Mm-hmm. That's what he was always referring to them as, the first people there building a place.
As the Indians call them, displacers or something. Removers of us.
I mean, at that time, I think in Canada, the French and the Indians were getting along better. They weren't slaughtering them like they were.
They were teaming up to do some slaughtering. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, but it was all the same. They were getting colonized one way or another. You see a lot of Canadians that are mixed. A big percentage of Canadians are mixed, and Americans not as much. And so, but what they brought over there, and what I saw when I went and visited Europe, is that they loved just you couldn't call it discussing, but they sat around talking politics, philosophy, whatever. They were seemingly educated. You know how Europeans like to educate themselves and talk about it. But they did it at elevated levels of discussion. Like, basically, to the outside world, it sounds like they're screaming at each other almost all the time. And so I used to think when I was young, it's like, wow, I want to be in these conversations. These conversations seem great to me, but I never could because I was young. But when I got older, like, I started screaming at my dad and everything, and we'd be talking all the things, but it was over the top, and my sisters couldn't quite stand it. Yeah. And my cousin, and I was always like, what's wrong with them? We're not being mean. This is how we talk, right? And I had to be in my 30s before I realized that this way of interacting with people was offensive and painful. And and so try to unravel that easily, and it was hard. And I still, even now in my marriage, I have to that will come up sometimes, and I have to just okay, turn it off. Yeah. It isn't good. It isn't pleasing. It isn't nice. Right. So, yeah. So I thought it was nice. So that's what I'm saying. Up till 30, I might have been hurting people with that kind of aggressive sort of thing. And I was like, what? Oh, I didn't. Yeah. I don't mean anything. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't mean anything by it.
Does that answer you?
So, I think, is it more of a Ontario, French, Canadian, your family when you're growing up thing, or was it all French people are yelling at each other all the time?
I think that that comes from Europe. I mean, the town of Siak was a little bitty town, and they were pretty isolated in Canada. And in the, there's cabin fever, so people try to behave with each other. You can go two ways with cabin fever. You can either be raging at each other, or you could be just like holding it in. Well, they didn't hold it in. They just did a lot of loud screaming and things. So much so that, they'd have to like walk it off. But the whole thing with my dad is there was an understanding that it was never personal. You could be saying, that's the most stupidest thing in the world and I hate you. No, they never said I hate you. It was just like, it's the most stupidest thing in the world and your idea is it's like trash, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, let's all go have dinner. It's like, it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you mean by vampire then?
Yeah, well, I might have been like sucking people's energy by
screaming at them,
not knowing that they weren't going to respond in kind, that I was just hurting them, sucking out energy. Yeah.
But you stopped that nonsense.
Well,
I'm
do your best.
98%.
98% he stopped.
Yes.
He no longer
That's
screams at
good
us
to
when
know.
we don't listen.
I think
Yes.
Dan gets it every once in a while.
Dan
Oh,
does get it
boy.
every once and again.
Yeah.
I've seen that. But, with clarification around it,
Yeah.
it helps understand. It's like you're not actually mad and screaming and berating and whatever else. It's just that's how you learn to communicate, and sometimes it slips through.
Sometimes it slips through. It's exactly
Right.
what's
That's
happening.
not part of your core at all.
No, it's not
Core
my core.
essence isn't
It was-
actually.
no.
In fact, it was a
raving
goal
with
to
the
learn to be like that. And
Yeah.
then, oops, what a bad goal.
Yeah. How to be a man. Let's go and shout and scream at people.
Louder man wins.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Tell us about your favorite movie of all times.
Star Wars made such an impact.
Yeah.
I saw it when I was 6 years old. My homeroom teacher, not 6 years, but sixth grade, my homeroom
Sixth
teacher
grade.
put us in the back of like a gremlin, I think. I remember just piled kids in the back and brought us to a movie theater, one of those ones when they used to have the giant screens.
Yeah.
And
you drive through.
and I was in a front row, never been in a front row before. And it was like, how Star Wars starts up and it's quiet and it goes, dun, dun, and I was like, the whole movie was like that. I was like, I'm a changed person. Oh my God. I think I saw it like 15 times in the theater.
Did you try to activate the force in you as a kid?
I never put it together with expansion awareness. That movie was just like.
So you didn't try to activate the force?
Well, I was
maybe-
always comparing it. Like I saw Luke doing this thing with his little ball floating around. It's like,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, there's something there. But now these Star Wars guys, they don't quite have it.
Think it maybe primed the pump for Carlos.
Maybe, but I think I was comparing Carlos, which actually resonated. And then Star Wars didn't have that kind of resonance. It was just great movie.
Mm.
Yeah. And then movies since then, I like black and white movies. There's one called Pygmalion, which...
I've heard of the name. What is that movie about?
It is about he's a guy who's a little bit over the top, likes to tell people what to do. And he is a person who he knows a lot about phonetics and speech in England.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows and he sees that the different accents that they have in England can make you a queen or stay in the gutter or a pauper.
Yeah.
And he has a run-in with a pauper on the street, but she has something about her, and he was just talking to a guy who came in from like India, who was like had been reading his books, and they were gonna like hang out together, and he was like, "See, this woman right here, because of that accent, she's gonna stay in the gutter for her whole life, and she's right there listening to him, and she's like, I'm not going to do blah," and he's just like, and he's just like ignoring her and just talking about her like she doesn't exist, right? And then like a church bell rings and he's like, oh wait, it's reminding me I need to be a better person about this. So he reaches into his pocket and he throws in her flower basket like this big gob of money, and she's like, oh, it's more money than she's ever seen, right?
Yeah.
And he's talking about how he could train. He goes, if I could train her in 2 weeks to be a duchess, and And so they leave. And then the next morning she's knocking on the door and she heard all that. And she said, you said you could make me a duchess and I'm going to give you back some of this money that you chucked at me yesterday. and he was like, oh, let's do it. Let's do it as an experiment. And so they
it's
did
like
it.
that movie,
My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
It's My Fair Lady is the musical version of Pygmalion.
Oh, I never knew.
It is. And Pygmalion, it makes My Fair Lady make so much more sense.
The
whole thing, yeah.
Spine.
Right. That's exactly.
It rains in Spain.
That rains in Spain and stays mainly in the plane.
Stays mainly on the plane.
Yeah.
Instead of the rain in Spain stays mainly on the plane.
Exactly. And so, you get the accents changing, but it was written. I like movies that are written very, completely and nicely and well done.
Yeah.
And that was George Bernard Shaw, I think.
It's a good story, yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So it's a black and white movie. I'll send you a link.
Yeah,
it's on
totally.
YouTube.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see Star Wars. I'll say that.
Did you never watch My Fair Lady?
No.
You can skip that and watch Pygmalion.
Yeah.
Okay,
if you can handle the black and white. I know a lot of people just can't do black and white, but once you start, it's all right.
Yeah, I'm sure I can handle
Did you
black
used
and
to
white.
watch those black and white movies of, I can't remember the name of the guy who's a dancer?
Fred Astaire?
Yeah, Fred Astaire.
Oh my
Did you
God,
watch-
yes.
You
I mean,
watched
when I
all
was doing
those?
dancing, I had all the VHS tapes and series of them. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I would bring some of the routines to my dance teacher, and it's like, I want to do a little bit of this.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's funny because I've only seen you dance formally once. And for context, you are a dancer, right?
yeah,
And I remember thinking, oh, he must like Fred Astaire. I remember thinking that.
yeah. Well, I mean, it always comes up at dances, like, hey, Fred Astaire's here. It's like, oh, hey.
So yeah, that's kind of cool. Tell us more about how did you start dancing and what inspired you to, become, it was quite high level dancing too, right?
Yeah, eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how I started was in our 20s, I had roommates and we used to go to bars and we would never meet women much. And we went in Orange County. There was a club that was doing swing dancing in the 90s and we didn't know that much about it. And we went in there and we looked around and we saw these geeky looking guys, just a few of them, dancing with all these good looking girls everywhere. We just looked at each other. It's like,
all right.
It's like, we need to have this skill and we need it now. It's like, and so we ran out and we found a dance teacher and started taking swing dance lessons for the sole purpose of hooking up with girls in our 20s.
That makes sense.
But what happened was I started taking dance lessons and some part of me really liked it. And so I, at the beginning I was still looking for girls and stuff, but then I kind of pushed that aside and stayed for the dance.
Mm.
And after swing dancing, it ran its course. I did some salsa dancing, and then I found ballroom, which was this egalitarian thing where you learn all the dances.
Right.
Right. And there was older people in there. And I remember when I started, I was like, this is where I'm going to end up because I'm a little bit too young still. But in a few years, I'll be back. And then in a few years later, I was like, okay, I'm done with the kiddie dances, and I'm going to learn all ballroom. And then I got a coach, and I was on a team. And then we started doing what was the other kind of dancing? We were like a troupe, and we were getting taken advantage of as dancers do to basically be a troupe and go to clubs and not get paid anything.
But you enjoyed it,
But
right?
I enjoyed it, and it was all And so I think I made $110 in my dance career.
So you're a professional dancer then.
Exactly. You know who gave me the $100?
Who?
Was the Catholic Church.
Oh my God.
In Santa Monica, there was a Catholic church that was a school, and they had a Dancing with Our Stars. And so they sent out a thing to LA to all the dance community and said, who wants to participate and be the star? And I'm like, sign me
I'll
up.
be a star.
I'll be a star. And then
Nice.
and I got to dance with a math teacher. It was great because it was like a Pygmalion story.
Oh.
Because she was like somewhat attractive, had a husband and a kid and stuff, but she wore sweats and didn't do makeup, and her hair was a rat's nest. And that's who she was because she didn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
And we transformed her. I taught her a waltz routine, and in just like a few weeks, she was kind of naturally could follow. And then my dance coach gave her like earrings and they sent her somewhere to do her hair, and then somebody gave her a ball gown.
Wow.
And when she showed up, like her husband walks over and goes, "Thank you." Because she saw,
that's a lovely story.
yeah, and all her students were like, "Oh, you're a princess!"
Wow,
it was so great.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that was nice. I thought we won, but the
someone else won.
it was the priest was doing a swing dance thing, and I don't think he was that great, but he went to his congregation in the morning and said, "You guys all have to vote for me."
Oh,
So they outvoted. I got outvoted by unfairly.
Dang. So are
Outvoted
you
by
a
the
Catholic?
voice of God.
Yeah, because the French Canadians are Catholic, and so
Do you still consider yourself a Catholic? Do you go to church and stuff?
No, that's a joke.
Is it? It's a joke.
So yeah, I grew up Catholic. I didn't ever go to was a Sunday school where they teach you communion and all that. So I could never like eat the body of Christ and drink the wine, which is blood. I never did that.
So you never cannibalized or?
I never cannibalized. I never did that. I haven't undone my baptism, but I don't even know. I'm sure I was baptized, but it was never mentioned.
So we just also insulted every Catholic on the planet.
Professional digging of holes.
You know,
Yes.
Catholics on the planet, more power to you.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to, there's things beyond that, and I'm beyond that.
So where were you born?
Newport Beach, California.
Oh, so you're an American?
I'm an American.
Oh, I thought you were Canadian.
No, my dad's a Canadian. And when I was 2 years old, something happened with my mother and her mentality, and my father's two brothers and sisters showed up from Canada. I think my aunt just got back from Venezuela. She did some kind of a tour there with Shell Oil or something. And they were all, she had dedicated her life to just taking care of her brothers, not to have a family.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said she was going to do. And so they were on their way back to our cottage in Canada, like the family home that was built by my granddad and brothers in 1920s sometime. And they were going back, and my dad, this, at the time, I didn't think anything of it, but he gave all 4 kids to my aunt and uncles and to go and live in Canada for 3 years. And so at 2 years old, I did not see my birth mother for 3 years. Mm-hmm. I think she visited, and I just didn't even know who she was. And then when I was 5, it was over. My mom had stabilized herself somehow, and we all were shuttled back to go live back in Huntington Beach, California. And that's, and so that was confusing. So
yeah, 2 to 5 is pretty.
That's where you're supposed to bond.
Impressionable age with your mother and etc.
You're supposed to bond with your mother and things. Well, I didn't. I think I bonded with my aunt a bit, but she didn't try to take the place of my mother. But she was very sweet, and it was the feeling in that family was sweet and nice.
Nice.
And then coming back with my mom, she drank a lot, and so it was a matter of, I look back at it now, of building up walls. Coping walls, It's like, and it was all around feeling. I mean, I spent my life around feeling like this doesn't feel, I don't like this feeling, but this is how families are. This is what families do. So I just build up a numbness of a wall.
Yeah. Like normalizing
Yeah.
that environment.
Right.
Yeah.
I just remember when I was 30 years old, we were talking in a workshop somewhere, and it was like, how was your life? Oh, my life was great. I had a great life, and it's like unanalyzed. And then when I started analyzing it and
wait, that wasn't so great.
it was like, well, there was a lot of weirdness there. And so, but I didn't take things personally. I wasn't against my mom. I mean, later on, she was aggressive and she drank a lot, and I didn't like that. So I learned how to try to not be there and things like that.
Right.
But I never had a feeling like I hate my mom. There was never any of that.
That's good.
Yeah. So, but I did know that my dad, I was like, they were divorced, and I grew up with a stepdad, and my dad would take me out on weekends to his place. And then when I went with him and got back together with my aunt and uncles, it was always like, a place where there's love in the house and people are nice. And then I would go home, and I wasn't dreading going home. I just went home and, put up the walls.
Right.
And just, sisters that are teasing, and that's just the way it is. Yeah.
And so did you grow up in California then?
Yeah, mostly.
Did you go to high school there?
Yeah.
What was your high school? Where did you go to high school?
Went to Westminster, was the little suburb in Orange County.
Yeah.
I had Westminster High. which was a 4A school, so it was quite big. I think graduating class of like 500 or 600 people. And it was funny because before I went there, I was in junior high and I was becoming a fat kid because I was sort of reclusive and hanging out with this guy named John McDonald, who was my neighbor and my quote best friend. And we were like learning how to cook. Like we would go in and like, oh, look, a cake mix, and we'd like do that. And so I was like eating a lot and not exercising. And so I was starting to chub up for about a year or two. And then I got a call from the high school and said, oh, you signed up when you were in junior high for cross country to go run. I was like, oh, I did? And he's like, well, we want you to go out for the team. And I'm like, well, but I'm kind of chubby right now. I'm not in shape. He goes, well, get you in shape.
Yeah.
and so I was like,
Okay.
it's like, all right, I've got nothing better to do. And so I went and I started running and I was sort of chubby. And then within, 6 months, I was fit and thin and the same thinness that I kind of am now. That's what happened. And then in high school, you lift weights and you run. And so I kind of got in shape and I was kind of strong and yeah. And
Cool.
so that was a turning point. Thank God I'd signed up for that. I think it was someone else in junior high was a runner and they said, Fred, sign up for this. And I'm like, all right. put my signature on something that changed my life.
That's amazing.
You just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting little things that change your life, isn't it?
It is. It's like all these little turning points.
Yeah.
And people have like, I think women are more like they have plans of their life. They like envision their whole life. I'm going to have this kind of a husband. I was just like, just like going from one thing to the next. Yeah. Like,
I think it's a personality thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. I've met men and women who are like that.
Yeah. But my career was easy that way. It was the same thing. I was first grade and a guy named John Kirby, we were in Westminster going to, grammar school. And his dad worked for Rockwell International, which was building the space shuttle at the time.
That's what I saw you wanted to do.
and John Kirby came once over, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. And we were all like drawing airplanes and dinosaurs and airplanes.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, yeah, we're all going to be aerospace engineers. That's it. Aerospace engineers.
That's how you went to university and graduated.
Exactly.
Right?
Because I was like, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. Boop.
What about
idea
your friends?
Inserted in head.
What about your friends? Did they do it too?
John Kirby and Herbert Sanchez, we all three went to San Diego State, enrolled in aerospace engineering. And John Kirby dropped out and became a stockbroker. Herbert Sanchez joined a cult. And
which one?
He never told me. I tried to get a hold of him. I was really wanting to talk to him. And he said, no, I can't talk to any of you guys because you'll deprogram me. You'll deprogram me and I don't want that to happen.
Oh my God. At least he was a conscious cult.
He was a conscious cult member. And I would go over and visit his brother, his older brother, Ed, because Ed actually roundaboutly became my roommate in college. He was going to law school and he went to San Diego.
Cool.
And and so I would go over there and his mom was always like, Fred, we like you. If I had a daughter, I would have tried to hook you up with her.
That's hilarious.
They were immigrants from Guatemala.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned your degree. Do you work within that area of your career, that chosen career?
Did that degree get you a job? And
I mean, it was the whole thing. It was like aerospace engineer, first grade, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And around me was there was a McDonnell Douglas plant that in high school I used to run around. That looked real futuristic. It had it looked like airplane windows on it. Oops. And sorry, I can't do this with my fingers. I get excited when I talk. It's part of that thing. It's part of that thing I was talking about in airplanes and get excited. And so, so I saw when I was growing up, I saw that building. And then my dad used to take me to his house in Long Beach from Westminster. And I remember, he had a van and I used to be looking out the window and we'd drive by the Long Beach airport at night. And it had big sea of little blue taxi lights.
Yes.
And it was all calm out there. And it was, it's back in like the 70s, 80s. And I used to walk by and I'd just be looking at that and just imagining. And I saw this big sign for McDonnell Douglas and there's these big jets were being built there and everything. The MD-11 and MD-80s. MD-80, I think, went into service the year of my birth or something like that, 1965. And I was looking at that and I just look out there and it's like, ah. And so when I graduated, strangely, my sister was working at a vet with a guy who also graduated in engineering, and his dad was working at that plant in McDonnell Douglas. And he said, oh yeah, if Fred wants a job. And nobody was getting jobs at that time, but I knew this guy from my sister, and we'd hung around at the vet in the summers. And he said, oh yeah, just come in, bring us your resume. You got a job.
Nice.
And I just went there, and I was just like, worried that and then the guy was like, he goes, oh, wait a minute. He goes, let me make this clear. You have the job. We're just trying to decide where to put you. And it was either working in C-17,
Brilliant.
which was military, which didn't resonate with me. It was all that I don't want to military. Or the MD-80, which was the derivative of the DC-9, which was that plane that was made when I was born. And I drew a picture of in Canada, like of the DC-9. And so they had it on the wall my whole life. And there it was. It was like that airplane I was working on. I was like, yeah.
Probably was a good choice. The military would have probably snatched you up for secret programs. We never would have found you.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's just like something was guiding me not to be in the military my whole life and career. I mean,
that's good.
Even up till now, I tried to get in the Office of Commercial Space when I came back from Belgium, and I got denied. Like I was in.
How could you say no to me?
I know. I was in and I was out. It's like, go back to commercial airplanes.
That's really fascinating that you have that plane and then you went to work.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's like, I guess that's the way the world works, right? You see things and then it's an idea and it gets burned in, and then if you just let it happen.
Yeah. Or maybe you could see the future. And you were guiding yourself as a kid,
Well, I've often thought of that. Maybe that was me coming back and like putting these points along the line.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like, you like that airplane. You can work on that airplane.
It's like leaving breadcrumbs for yourself.
Breadcrumbs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. Are you married? Do you have kids? Who do you live with?
Glad you asked, because it's such a special day.
Today is a special day?
Today is my first anniversary with my beautiful wife, Kara Consigli.
What? Nice. Congratulations.
And there's more. But wait, because a year ago today, I had two extraordinary friends. One who married us, named Inelia Benz.
Oh, that's me.
You remember, honey? You remember?
Yes.
And my best man was Larry Bazell.
Oh, yes,
that's you, honey.
Yeah, we were dressed up a little bit fairyish.
Yes.
A little bit, I don't know what the words would be, but it was pretty cool.
Everyone looked astoundingly wonderful.
Astounding, right? On our
nice.
giant property we bought together.
On a giant property we bought together that we turned into a really pretty wedding grove and the whole thing. And so in this last year, it's been a nice year.
Sweet.
I moved into Kara's house, and we subsequently bought the house next door, so it's our house.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a very different energy. I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful energy.
It's the other house is we're in this house and nobody come over. And this house is, come on over. We can sit in the backyard.
Yeah.
Go out, play in the river.
Nice.
Because we have canoes and things. And the downstairs is very pretty and welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. Do you have any babies?
We don't have a baby.
Well, you have a fur baby. I saw her earlier.
Well, we have a dog, and I love my dog.
You have a fur baby. I heard you're getting another fur baby.
And we're going to have a cat, and I know I'll love the cat, but I was resistant to getting the cat because, it would be nice to have a real baby, but we can have more things to do because, putting things on our plate is what we do.
Yes.
If you don't have too much, then you're not doing it right, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's true. Maybe it's push your boundaries.
I'm pretty sure if you get a kitten, it'll be grown up by the time a baby comes. That'll take like 8-9 months for a baby to come out. And a 1-year-old cat's pretty much grown up.
Well,
so
it'll be fine.
I don't know how kittens stop you from having a baby.
Of course, we had to buy the most expensive cat on the planet, so hopefully it won't be an eagle snack.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I know. I remember when in my earlier years I was looking for cats, and there was these serval ones. They're like a wild cat from Africa, and it's really, really tall.
Those things are giant. They're the biggest cats.
$15,000 each. Yeah. And you can't let them outside or else they run away. I'm like, what the?
They're not really cats. They're wild animals.
Exactly.
No. I don't think I can have one of those. The door's going to get opened. Yes. That's not going to work.
No.
Yeah. You got a cat like Theodora and Brad, right?
We did.
Yeah.
It's
which are Siberian.
It's sort of the it's got Theodore's color and Brad's markings.
Nice
combo.
So, and it's a male.
Siberian.
I think I would have rather
cat.
had the female, but we'll take a male.
Yeah,
Dora's so sweet.
You're allowed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found that with the cats, generally speaking, the males are way sweeter and friendlier with our humans than the females.
Oh,
the females are a bit demanding.
Yeah.
Oh, but you must have got it lucky with Dora.
Dora is a case of her own. She's not like any cat that I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
She's a hugging cat.
Completely unique, and she hugs.
She hugs
all the time
to everybody. She's like a therapy cat.
Yes,
Yeah.
she will hug you.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I found with male cats, they're most often more affectionate like that too.
Usually, yeah.
Brad's
Brad
a
is
good cat.
super affectionate,
He is.
but not as much as
He doesn't hug you. He
Not
likes
as much
to,
as Theo.
scratch
lay on
you
and
Yeah.
and
play
wrestle
with
and,
you.
and all that. He's
They're
kind of
very
a
different.
wrestler. So it'll be interesting to see what your boy turns out to be.
He's the king. He's gonna I told our dog, you'll be dominated at one point. So if you're nice to the cat at the beginning,
She'll be fine.
the cat will be nice to you.
Let's see how that goes.
We'll see. Yeah, they are not, defenseless, these cats.
No, not at all.
Anyways, let's go back. Something you mentioned when you were 14 or 12 or 13 that you had that book, right? That your sister gave you. Would you consider that to be the moment you woke up?
So I don't know what the definition of woke up is. If you want to give a few words to that, I could say that would be the moment that I felt something that resonated. I started to understand that there was more to the world than what you can see and around you. And it made my thinking go in the direction of pursuing what is this more.
Would you say it changed your life path?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point I found out that the Carlos Castaneda people were actually giving workshops all over the world right when the internet was there. I couldn't find Carlos Castaneda even though other people were finding him. I was looking physically. I drove my motorcycle like down Santa Monica Boulevard, which was the address on the back of the book, and did not find that address.
Wow.
Later they said, oh yeah, that was a hidden address. It's like, oh, thanks guys. But then one day, Carlos Castaneda died, and my roommate said, hey, your guy that you like write all his books, he died. And I'm like, oh,
What?
he died? Oh, that's too bad. Which brings up another thing I'll talk about in a second. And then, so I was thinking, wow, I might have missed something here. And then I went to sleep and I had a dream, and in it was this big words in white on a black background, internet. And I woke up and I'm like, I gotta go find Carlos Castaneda guys on the internet. and I called up the girl next door, my roommate's girlfriend, and said, you got a computer? Can I get on your internet? And she's like, sure. And I went over there like Carlos Castaneda was like, boom. And there all this stuff was in workshops, and immediately went to a San Diego workshop. And there was like all these guys from all over the world, and they were talking about how great it was when Carlos Castaneda was there.
How old were you?
That was, I must have been 27-ish, 28. And that really changed my life because then all of a sudden I was going to workshops with very woo-woo people. These guys were learning expanded awareness. And of course, that attracts people that are learning expanded awareness. Yes. And we all thought we were very special because like we're going to go and learn how to be like panthers and run across, and turn into, ravens and things like that and be in the desert. And
shapeshift and run through the desert in the middle of the night without stepping on thorns.
All that kind of stuff in the books. And it was just like, well, it's all here. We're part of this lineage now. This is all happen, which they were kind of trying to do, but it was an experiment because Carlos Castaneda was this closed lineage where they were just grabbing the people that they saw could succeed and training them to be the next bunch to succeed and keep this lineage going, where they would expand their awareness as far as they could humanly go in their domain, right? Which is different than what we're doing. I mean, they were doing something different. They were just trying to, they call it the band of man. Like, this is what man is capable of in the universe. And they could see like the strands of energy and everything. They call them filaments. But they saw all that stuff in one way, and they saw the expanded awareness, and they just had a whole different syntax for it, which was very Native American. And they would train the people, like they would get newbies and normies that didn't know anything and kind of hook them. And so a lot of their stuff was to hook you, so to tell you things that would get you into the world, because they said, this stuff is hard and nobody's just going to do it on their own. They said, the only people who want to do this on their own are kind of cracked. And those aren't the people that are going to succeed. We want these really energetic people that have lives and can do it and can succeed, and we'll hook them. And then by the time they figured out they're hooked, they're already in, because we put them into altered states of awareness and they've learned a whole lot of stuff that they don't even know they learned. And then when we leave, their job is to go back and remember everything that they got taught. And once they do all that, then they teach the next group. And so they weren't trying to raise the vibration of the planet. They weren't trying to do anything. They were just trying to have all of this knowledge about expanded awareness and give it to somebody. And so Carlos Castaneda died, and before he died, Don Juan, who was his trainer, they saw that Carlos Castaneda couldn't be this leader. And it's like, they're like, how did we miss this? We're looking at him energetically, and he's supposed to have the energetic configuration, and we kind of just didn't really see it, but now we're seeing it. And it's like, you don't have it. And Carlos Castaneda goes, yeah, I can't lead my way out of a paper bag. He goes, I'm not a leader. And then they thought about it for a while, and it was like, oh, it's over. The lineage is over. We have to give this knowledge to the world as best as we can. And this is like, okay, Carlos, it's up to you. And so he wrote a lot of books while he was writing the books, and that guy was kind of coaching him along. And then they started doing these workshops, because he had a band of like 16 people, I think. And they were training this, and they didn't know what they were doing. They were telling us, it's like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just going to do all the stuff that we got trained to do and see where it goes. And it eventually kind of disintegrated a couple times. And but it's okay, because it was out there, and he put his books out there in the 70s about expanded awareness, and that's, I think, what he was here to do. Get people to see expanded awareness. Yeah.
Have any questions on that?
Did you ever run in the desert with your eyes closed?
No. Oh, I did, but not with Carlos Castaneda group.
Okay. That was beer. or whiskey. Or
whiskey.
Beer and whiskey.
I closed my eyes and I was like, wait, I do see myself running in the desert at night with my eyes kind of closed. I couldn't really see. It was dark.
Oh, I guess it didn't matter if you closed your eyes. We couldn't see, huh?
It didn't matter. It was dark.
So you're just running around in the desert.
I was at another workshop that was with David Elliott, and he would bring us out at night in the desert outside of Palm Springs, 29 Palms area. It was super hot. And he would have fires and things out, kind of. He'd go to a spot, and then we'd have to walk like a mile out into some rock enclosure. And it was really pretty nice area. And he would have like rocks where we would put intentions and things like that under rocks. And then he always had circles, and people would, say their piece about, this, that, and the other.
What would you say was your level of success in using these tools for getting what you wanted out of life?
Well, I think I'd have to define what I was trying to get out of life and see if it worked. And I was trying to keep being in these workshops. I was like a workshop junkie. And so the success was 100%.
So I guess the hooks work. The hooks work good.
It seems to be whenever I'm in I don't know, it looked like there's something about me in workshops, and something always happens where I become like this oddball centerpiece in different things. It's not a coincidence that I'm kind of like the oddball goofy one here a little bit on that side. That's I can almost say, looking back at it, that there's something about my configuration that, I really like to be in these kind of environments. The spiritual workshop, learning new things. I'm kind of good at it. In a way. My dog is barking. She doesn't agree. Meet, you agree. And so
it's the FedEx guy.
Oh, it's
the FedEx guy.
The FedEx guy. Well, we might have to clip out a few minutes, because if the FedEx guy comes,
triggers her.
Yeah,
if the FedEx guy comes, it's really on like Donkey Kong.
FedEx guys,
Donkey Kong.
They trigger everyone in the neighborhood. So I had a talk with him, and he doesn't know why.
So.
Maybe make a box over there, like we did at Shaman Shack.
Make a
Put
box.
your stuff in a box. So it doesn't come to the door and you don't have the...
Can you write the minute, or where does it say how many minutes we're having?
If you just ignore him, he goes away or what?
Yeah, he just rang the doorbell and he'll go away.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what the minutes are.
So you got your FedEx guy trained and your dog trained.
Yeah, she's going to do that. Okay, Michiko, that's enough. Come sit down. Come on. Come on. He's gone.
Is there any way to see the timestamp?
No. Well, no.
She's a good dog.
You know, it's one of those things that the producer needs to do, keep track of these things. We got a couple of mic clicks and we got a FedEx.
Michiko, come on. Come on. Come here. Go sit down.
I'm working, Dad.
Oh, she's
I'm
got
working,
a beagle.
Dad.
She's working. I know
She's got a beagle.
She's got a beagle.
She has to do it.
She's got to beagle that bunny rabbit out the door.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she won't do it anymore as long as no more rings.
That don't bother me none. I like dogs beagling.
Oh, wow, she does it.
What a good girl.
She's a good girl. Okay. Anyway, because it was interrupting my goings on about me being in workshops and being the center of attention kind of thing, it turns out that I'm often the center of attention, and there's a lot of laughter around me. Kind of showing the process in a naked way on the outside. And so I'm used to being in that role. Yeah.
Is that why you had such epically terrible stories? I remember when I
you
first
guys
met
say they're
you
epic and terrible. Terrible for you.
We had to pull him aside and say, Fred, you have to work on those stories.
Work on your
Fred.
stories, Fred. The stories that's an epically bad one.
Don't share those stories.
Let's come up with better stories.
I'm sorry.
You did then.
You guys
You did.
Yeah,
I
you started
did.
coming up with
You totally
really
came up
good
with great
stories.
stories.
I have to understand how sensitive you guys are.
There you go.
Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe.
So,
yes.
anyway, yeah, one of the workshops I was in, I don't know if we have time, but just to say this is, I think Larry knew who Tom Brown was. He was sort of, at the same time Carlos Castaneda was writing books, Tom Brown was writing a series of books about how he learned from a Native American named grandfather, I guess is what he called him. And grandfather was a Native American that traveled from tip of Canada all the way down to South America, like on foot twice in the 1800s. And he was a very advanced Lipan Apache who was, he was very spiritual. He could get into the other world's side easy back before they were conquered. And so his group of Lipan Apaches didn't do war with the white men. They just evaded them. And so he knew how to do that evasion. And he knew it was over. They knew it was over. And so he was wondering, he was going on a vision quest, wondering, what was my role in life? And it came to him through a vision quest. It's like, you need to gather up all of this information that's left, that's still here. And so that's why he spent his whole life going up and down, avoiding all the white people and just going to the native tribes that had anything left and collecting how to make baskets, how to do their spiritual things, how they lived and what they did and how they built things. And he collected all that, and then he was in his aging part of life, and he didn't teach it to anybody. And then this Tom Brown guy came, who was, I think, a relative of his in New Jersey. And he had someone else, which was named like Rick. So Tom and Rick were like little kids, and they went out in the forest, and this Indian taught him everything that he had learned as much as he could within like 7 or 8 years. And of course they soaked it up like a sponge, and then Tom Brown became this like big guy that had all these stories, and he wrote them down in books, and then he had these things called a tracker school. And when I found out that he had a tracker school, I was like, oh, I'm going there. And so I'd spend weeks at the tracker school, and it turned out there was the learning the skills, like how to make fire and stuff, and then the philosophy thing, and it was expansion of awareness in his Native American way. And so why I'm saying this is because Tom Brown just passed away Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, I split paths with him because he was he was the ultimate prepper, and he was prepping all these guys for the apocalypse, and then COVID came, and so he was just so on board with the destruction of the world. I was like, I can't go down that path. It's like I'm on the path of light, and this guy is going to be the leader of the light dark.
Oh wow.
Because he's going to bring all the people who are going to stay light dark, and he'll be able to rock and roll. We'll be able to get through it and do our best. And, so
I've met somebody like that. It's like they've been waiting for 20 years, 30 years for the end of the world, and now finally.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's now. Yes.
It's now.
It's happening.
Finally,
Yay.
it's happening. Yeah.
I told you.
I told you.
Yeah,
it's a very different mindset.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, I was in a class of his, and he goes, okay, now we're going to go into a vision. Close your eyes. And he was like, imagine the nearest biggest city, which was New York, like a bombed out Hulk. I'm like, oh
my
gosh. Like he's
Oh,
bringing us down to envision the world going wrong. I'm like, okay, this is a split with you and me. I'm never coming to another class because I'm not going down this road.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Iris was there for that too.
Have you ever wondered sometimes why all these, I mean, like at the beginning, it's like this expanded awareness. You think this is going to bring wisdom also, and it turns out it doesn't seem to work that way. It's like I've been around, as you have, I don't know, probably hundreds, if not thousands of people who've worked on expanding their awareness, and somehow it doesn't all lead them to like what I would expect. It's like, hey, you can see it now, so you're going to go with this hulked out, burned up New York. That's where you got.
Right.
Where's it? How do they get there?
It seems that, I think I heard someone say this recently, but expanded awareness does not equal high frequency.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's an example right there, and many others.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
a lot of these groups that disintegrate because their awareness is expanded, but they're not. They don't clean themselves up. And
I suppose it could be said, the leaders of the light dark reality have expanded awareness, and they're not the highest frequency, and they're successful.
Yes, indeed.
They haven't dissolved or anything.
yeah, they do have expanded awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Anyway, it's like one of those conundrums, like, because I think, right, we see the world through our eyes. We think from our frequency, that's what we're like, everyone's like doing. So when my awareness expands, like, oh, I see. Yeah, that's not a high frequency thing. And so that's not what I'm going to do. And others see that as like, oh, that's a good way to manipulate a lot of people so that I can get X, Y, Z, maybe, or I don't know what they think.
Yeah. It's amazing the day that you realize that not everybody sees the world like you.
Yes, it's a shock, right?
Because it's like in every single moment when you're talking to them, it's not like broad strokes. It's like every little piece of everything. And it's like, holy smokes.
How did you get that?
Well, it's just like I'm in my own little bubble and everybody's in their own little bubble. It's like, it's amazing.
Shocking.
It's shocking, actually, because it's like I'm saying things, but it's like what I can say. I mean, some people are really good at articulating, and I'm not even that good. And so some people can get some things across. Imagine what I'm getting across. Not much. It's pretty funny.
It's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
That's cool. So one of our questions is, how did you get here in this Ask Me Anything with Larry and Inelia?
How did you end up sitting there?
How did you end up sitting
with a microphone of your own?
Let me see. Oh, with microphone of my own.
Talking to us about this kind of thing.
I think part of the microphone of my own is the oddball thing. I have so much experience in that. But where it all started was, it was so long ago, starting with Miss Iris, who she always is the sniffer of new things. She finds it. And she's good at it. And she's still doing it. And she's the one who told me that Tom Brown died 3 days ago, and I didn't even know. It's like, again, she's always got the information. I cherish her for that. She sent me the Bill Ryan tape or recording. And when I saw that, I was like, it's like, okay, here's another person that's completely resonating. She's my new favorite person. It's like,
that was you, honey. That's you.
That's me. Okay.
That was you. And it's like you sitting in front of that chair while was it you? That was another timeline you.
Yeah.
And same physical body at least. So I saw that, and being a workshop junkie, I immediately found out, I think you had a newsletter at the time.
Maybe.
It was something like a newsletter because I knew of your offerings.
Yeah, they had one, I think, Ascension 101, interview with an alien and a newsletter.
It was a newsletter because then it would say, okay, we're going to have a meeting, a get together with Inelia Benz.
Yeah,
meet and greet. And it was like, and that was
Valley.
that was that golden time when plane tickets were cheap
$99.
and traveling was easy. And oh my God, you could just go anywhere in the world you want, like for nothing. And so it was like, oh, it's got a workshop, and it's like, Sacramento and Grass Valley, and ended up in Spain. I think saw you guys after you went to Montserrat, and you gave me the whole download right away because I was familiar to you. And you're like, oh yeah, we were just there and we went to, and Larry had to hold a baby and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that whole story, and I was like, oh, that was really cool. But I think I went to every single event that I knew about between that Bill Ryan interview, seeing it, and all the way up to when you came out to Nia Bay, and I went to Europe, and then I missed some things when everything started happening out here with Kara and everything. I missed some things.
Did you go to Ecuador?
No, I regret it because Vilcabamba was going to happen, and I was like, oh, I'm going. And then it was like I called up, and their travel agent says, hey, we got a spot, and we can get you like on a plane to a little plane that goes over the jungle, and maybe a bus and a donkey or something like that.
Yes,
but,
exactly.
And it's like,
it was.
and it's all gonna go like, it's like we got an opening and it's smooth, and it's like, whoop, the door opened up like full. And I looked at it and I'm like, I'm going to travel for like 4 full days of traveling for like a 2-day retreat, and I've seen Inelia Benz like 15 times now. It's like, and some stupid reason I just dropped it. I had no reason not to. And I was like, I'm not going to go. And so I called her up and I said, I think I'll just not do it. And some other timeline was really strong that I went, because when the next time I saw you, I was like, oh, I went to all your workshops, excluding Vilcabamba. And you looked at me and went, You were there. You were there. And I was like,
really? I don't remember.
It's like, I remember not being there, but I really wanted to be there, but not enough. So, I mean, there was no excuse for not going. Yeah. That was an interesting one. So after going to all those workshops, one of them, it was Sacramento, I think, I ran into Larry. And
Grass Valley or Sacramento, maybe the one.
It might have been both of them, but I remember
both of them, yeah, probably.
In Sacramento that you had worked in restaurants and stuff, and there was something about somebody needed help taking trays and things like that, and we kind of like started working behind the scenes at night for dinner, and we were like kind of bonding into, all right, let's get her done, kind of thing. And so that was fun. And then when that one ended, I remember that was the part where I got in a really expanded state, and everybody looked completely beautiful. Remember I told you that story, how it was like, everybody is so interesting, everybody's so beautiful. And I was like, so, obviously, I kind of think that's what you're kind of going for, is to get everybody in an expanded state.
Right, yeah.
So
it was, that event was interesting.
Yeah.
It was basically going to be taking everyone to oneness.
Gateway to oneness,
highest, and the highest frequency available. And I wasn't very familiar with the human condition. So, yes, not everybody was safe in the environment.
Some people cracked.
But some individuals had an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the end of
everybody had an experience for sure.
Yeah. Again, I thought everybody was all just like me, like, well, this is awesome. Yeah. And then I only to find out later on that some people had like some real, something happened to them, and they had a lot of issues so it was like the frequency is, it was an irresponsible thing, really, to expect everybody to do that, or to understand what the event was happening, what the event was about, even though I wrote it out quite well. People didn't understand what it was about. Yeah.
But it was for the individuals who had that, got as close as possible to their state of oneness. Many people have said it changed them forever. Yeah. It was amazing.
It was nice. It was a really good feeling. I've had it one other time after some other event. But then after that, we were kind of hanging out, and Larry was there, and I was like, this is a cool guy. And I don't know what it was, but I don't know how, can't even remember how we were like emailing and stuff, but we were
pretty sure emails. Yeah,
it was emails, but then it was like further events. And when I saw you, then you guys came to Belgium, And I said, hey, let's get together. And then we went out to that place, Peter Porbus or something like that, and had a nice little thing. And we hung out that day. And so that was nice.
That's cool.
And so while I was in Belgium, was it Telegram or something like that? Every once in a while, Larry would send me a message.
Like, hey, Fred, how's it going?
We were talking about choice points, and you were responsible for me
getting married,
and all that kind of stuff.
Actually,
that's a story that will not be told anymore, because that was then.
That was Gaia.
Yeah, that was Gaia.
That was Gaia. So anyway, we were kind of talking over the email, and and then my job, like I said earlier, my job came back, and I was going to be in the Office of Commercial Space. I was going to be in DC, tethered to another city. Post-COVID, my plan was to go back to Europe after 4 years. But then I got booted out of space because space is a vacuum and it sucks.
I think that's an engineer space joke.
Yeah. And so when they lost that job for a human resource error, and so it just,
lovely.
Yeah, it was just like, it was like rocks. It just didn't work. And so they said, go back to your other group. And I was like, okay, so where can I go? So I went to a group that was not tethered to an office, which is the first time in my career. I was going to spend the rest of my career, had to be near a big city where there's an FAA office. And DC I was going to be there, like, the biggest, which is the total worst time to be there. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. And I think Simone said, when you go back, why don't you go back to Seattle? And I was like, God, I've spent my whole life being around the guru. That's the last place I want to be. It's like, I'm not going to go.
I think he called you a guru, honey.
Yeah, that's not me.
I was like, I'm not going to sniff around the guru. I'm not going to follow the power again. I'm not going to do it. So I'm not going. I'm going to stay on the East Coast. And I'm going to do this Europe thing. And so it was the first time in my life I made a plan. I'm gonna do this plan. It's like, plans don't work for me. I know that. It's like, I just have to just be open. And so it fell apart, the job, and then
Washington DC fell apart.
Washington DC fell apart. So then it was like in the other group, and then it was like, well, since I'm in the other group, it's a virtual group, and we're virtual since COVID, and it's COVID, and we don't have to be in an office. And so I can go to Boston. Boston's close to Europe, and so I can shuttle back and forth.
Yeah, Boston's like right next door to Europe.
It's only 6 hours.
It's only 6 hours. Yeah. It's not 9 hours, the whole thing. And I got somebody waiting for me over there, and I was going to shuttle back and forth for 4 years. And so I'll stay here. But I was like, there's nobody in Boston I know. I only know one person in DC, and I'm leaving them.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, but I'll go. It'll be fine. And then I was like, got in my car, and like I had physically everything a lot of things I owned were in storage by the government, and everything else was in my car. Mm-hmm. Everything. And so in my car. And so I was
Fred the vagabond.
I was a vagabond. I was going to Boston to just find an apartment and just
homeless vagabond Fred. I'm sure this is never really.
And then I think I've said this before on a call, but this is like Larry called me up while I was like passing New York, looking at Staten Island or whatever, and I'm driving along, and it's like phone rings. I'm like, hey Larry, what's going on? And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to Boston.
Boston? What the hell are you going to Boston for?
It's exactly what you said.
What the hell's in Boston?
And then what did you say after that? He said, why don't you come out here?
Come out here. Don't be ridiculous.
Don't be ridiculous. Come out here. And I'm like, okay. It's like there's a whole community out here, and we all want to see you. And I'm like, okay, with people. There's somebody.
Let's see, be all alone in a giant city with not the greatest weather.
And it was like mental gymnastics. It's like, I can go back and forth from Seattle to, I can do that.
They have airplanes that go from Seattle to
Right, Seattle to I can still make the plan work. It'll all work. And as soon as I made that decision without asking my then wife,
everything started to work out perfect.
That decision was the end of that marriage, which was a good thing. It was a really good thing, actually. And there's starter marriages are good for a reason, because you make decisions and you learn things, and
of course,
and it's good and she was a good person, and so it got annulled because we just it just fell apart right after that. And then so I came out here, and then there was a community, and I have to say, in the David Elliott, he was making a community, but it was like, this isn't quite right, and it didn't stick. Carlos Castaneda community was a community, but it fell apart. there was tensegrity people in France that had a community that were they were making it. And I was like, hey, you want to come live down here? And I was like, yeah, but it just doesn't resonate. And how many communities did I get invited to? A lot. And I really wanted to be in one. And I was thinking, maybe south of France someday. But when Larry said, come over here, I was like, well, there's a community and there, you know, people that I really understand really well. When I came in here, I'm like, this is a good community. You know, this is, yeah, I like it here. This is the first one that like, I could see myself here. And I was like, okay, but I still am supposed to sometime go back to work.
Yeah.
But then the whole COVID thing happened. So how did I get to be here is because 2 years of COVID, I never set foot in an office. And then somehow I was able to just be working remotely, even though I'm not allowed to. And so now I'm working 3 days. They're forcing me to work 3 day weeks. So for shame, I have to take Monday off, and I don't work Friday, and those are my 2 office days, quote office days. Yes. And so I got Tuesday, Wednesday.
Use your saved up vacation time.
Not vacation, my sick leave. So I'm losing a benefit, but
you're gaining a giant one.
I'm gaining a giant one, so I get to stay out here. So, and that'll last. I can, if they force me out, my minimum retirement age is next February. So that could happen.
Jeez, that's quick.
Yeah. And so how did I end up in front of a microphone? Because when I came out here, it's the community, and I married Kara, and Kara is involved with so many things with you. And so I naturally want to be part of, you know, what I can. And I guess Inelia and Adelina were doing this, and then they wanted to take a break to have a baby.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you said, well, why don't we have some other people and we'll do a different format with different people? And it's like, well, Kara's there and you can be there. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's do that.
Cool.
And yeah, so that's.
And all the fans, you're the favorite person in the show. Honestly. So
I don't know. I don't know if I still am, but you know,
you still are.
There was a couple of key moments where somebody likes my stories.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It is totally.
So, last question.
Yes.
If you could talk to yourself from 20 years ago, what would you say? And
20 years ago, Fred? Or
20 years ago or 19-year-old Fred?
What would you tell 19-year-old Fred?
No. 20 years ago.
So when I was 40.
Yes.
39.
Yeah.
Wait.
The answer is for hour 2. Because we have a second hour for all our supporters.
Yes.
We're driving to the Rez, right? Where you are actually one of our expert panelists.
The experts.
That is true.
You can answer this question.
Yes.
In the second hour.
And you can find that at drivingtotherez.com to sign up for the second hour so you can hear what Fred will tell his 39-year-old self.
I have so many things I want to tell myself.
Oh, no.
I'd rather tell my 19-year-old self, because I could have avoided a lot of hardship.
We could do both.
But if I'm 39, then
let's see what we
a lot of pain already happened, and I could have avoided it. But hey, you know, there's still things that could happen.
We can do both.
Okay, so for Fred, we can do 19-year-old Fred and 39.
There you go.
I like it.
Yep, we'll see you in the second hour then.
See you in the second hour.
I really want to know what you're telling yourself.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome. Yay. This is fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Can you, as an engineer, can you define gravity?
As an engineer? No, not any better than anybody else. I mean, it is a force that, if we were to be on a, quote, ball of Earth, it's a force that's coming straight down and it's sticking us to the Earth. And we have some equations that I was taught to measure it and express, if you're like somewhere not on the Earth, how much the gravity would be, or what the gravity should be on the moon, knowing if you could know the mass of the moon.
So basically, no.
You can't give us an engineering way. So I dropped the rock down the well and it made a plop at about 6 seconds. How far did it go?
Well, right. So we have the equations for that, right? Because we know about acceleration due to gravity.
Yeah, but that's not gravity. That's
what I'm saying. As engineers, we basically use the equations to make stuff. It's the scientists that know what gravity is. So as an engineer, no, I don't know jack crap about how to. I like gears and how to make things work using the simplest equations I can based on these things.